Shalom, welcome to the second video on Sedrat Shemos. This is Shemos, Parak Aleph, Pasuk Yud, and we have to move a little quick because it's long and we only have that a little amount of time here. So the Pasuk says, Havad chesach malo pen yirbev hayat tikrenu mechama v'nosafu gam al sonenu v'nucham banu v'ala minaretz. Paroah says we have to deal with the Jewish people in a wise manner because it could happen that we will be attacked from another country and then the Jewish people will come along and join with and collude with the people attacking us from the outside and we'll have a war on us from the inside. Rashi says as follows. If you look at Rashi, Divrei Amaschal Nischak V'Malo, Nischak V'Mala Soslo, Rabasinu Darshu, Nischakam L'Moshiach Shel Yisrael, L'Doram V'Mayim, Shekvar Nishba Shel Yavi Mabul Yolam. Rashi says that the Egyptians knew that God had promised the world never to punish them through water again, and since He promised them never to punish them through water after the flood in Noach's time, Paroah knew that God punishes what's called Midah Keneged Midah. He punishes in the way you do something wrong, God will punish you the same way. So if they would chop off the Jewish babies' heads with a sword, then Paroah knew he would be punished in that same way. But since God had already promised the world that He wouldn't punish them through water anymore, so He says, okay, I don't have to worry. If I kill the Jewish babies with water, God can't do anything to me since He already promised not to punish in that matter. Obviously, what He didn't realize was, as the sea came crashing down on His people, that there are many ways to punish by water. God only promised not to flood the people. The Ramban, though, is fascinating. As you read the Ramban, think back to Hitler, and it almost seems like he followed the Ramban's idea of what Paroah did. And the Ramban says as follows: Havan eschak malo lo ra'a Paroah b'chachmei yotzav la'kosam b'charav kiti begida gedola la'kos chinam ha'am asher bo b'aretz b'mitzvos hamelach. The Ramban says, and I hope we have enough time to read it all, the Ramban says that it would have been a great travesty and almost like he would have been a traitor if Paroah had harmed the Jewish people, because Paroah said, because the first Paroah had invited the Jewish people down, and it would have been almost going against Paroah's invitation to invite the Jewish people to Yaakov down, so that wouldn't have worked. V'gam am haaretz lo yidnu reshus l'melech lasos chamas kazeh. The people of Egypt were civilized, and they would never have stood for a genocide against people simply out of anti-Semitic principles. And even if he would have said, well, they could wage war against us, they wouldn't have bought in. But rather, Paroah says we have to be smart, and the Jewish people shouldn't realize that we're persecuting them. So Paroah, first thing he did, and it was the way of doing this, as the Ramban says, even Shlomo Melech did this. When you have foreigners living in your land, you put a heavy tax on them because they're not citizens. So that's the first thing he did. So the next thing he did, we'll do this outside, the next thing Paroah did was he had them be slaves and then work for the people. First he got paid for it, then the Jewish people no longer got paid for it, and then they were slaves only a month out of the year, then 3 months out of the year, and then finally they were slaves full-time without getting paid, completely persecuted against, and then finally when the Egyptian people had it convinced in their minds that the Jews were a lower type of person, they were different than them, then Paroah was able to convince them, now it's acceptable to go ahead and kill them, and that's when they started throwing the Jewish babies into the water. A scary Ramban, considering that Hitler followed the exact same plan of first convincing the German people that the Jews were undermentioned, that they were less than people, and then once the German people understood that, they went ahead and killed the Jewish people. Same thing that Paroah did. Fascinating machlokas between Rashi and the Ramban, and I hope that you'll investigate it and analyze it, figure out what the concepts are, figure out what the agreements are, what the disagreements are. Sorry I spoke so fast, but I wanted to make sure that we had enough time in this video to cover both Rashi and the Ramban. We did so, and by the way, do you know what's behind me in this picture? Shalom.